Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. A lot of good positive feedback. And every week the show continues to grow for some reason. And I really appreciate y'all, yeah, y'all being a part of this. If you ever have a show that you want, please feel free to message me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you want to. Shoot me a message if there's a show or somebody you want to see on, a company or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm open to talking to different people. I have a list of shows I want to do, but there's always one that can fit in. Maybe it's topical of or seasonal or something going on in the industry or whatever it is. So yeah, just shoot me a message. Don't hesitate. Don't hopefully I'm approachable and you feel like you can do that, but I'm always open to having a show. Somebody actually Joe Drowns, he had a up in Gunnersville, he had a great idea for a show on rules and regulations. So I'm trying to get somebody from the like Alabama Department of Wildlife, whatever it is, fisheries and wildlife. I'm used to Mississippi one. I forget what they call it here in Alabama, but yeah, going to try to have somebody of those on, somebody from there on. It's kind of hard with some shows with business professionals if it's what they do full time because my I work during the day and I can't do a podcast during the day because I'm a professional as well in my real life. But yeah, this week it's just going to be me. Sorry, just going to have to put up with me this week. But I want to talk about something that it's going to be a very short show. Number one, and I brought some examples here. So if you're listening to it, that's great. I'll do my best to explain it all. But if you want to watch it on YouTube, you could do that as well. But this week I want to talk about wacky rigs. And because I never give them enough love, I want to shout out my sponsors, my personal sponsors. We don't have any for the show. If you're a company that wants to get in on that, holler at me and Armando. But first, I want to say thank you, Armando. We've been feels like we've been a really good team since we've been doing the podcast under one roof, and yeah, really appreciate him. Yak Gadget, they obviously make some of the best products around. You got to have, there's always going to be something on your kayak from them that you can put on there. X Zone Lures, I'm going to talk about some of their stick baits because I truly do believe in them. But they make a lot of great baits. If you're looking for a crawl trailer, good place to start is a MB Finesse Crawl or just the regular MB Crawl. It's the larger one. They're both excellent all year from like summer to winter. Great action tails float. I really do think that makes a difference. I really think it does. Um, Also, Bucks Island, I went and did the deer hunting expo this weekend at the BJCC here in Alabama and sat around, got to talk about kayaks for a while, and that was cool. So if you were at the show, I appreciate y'all coming by the booth. And last but not least, Z Pro Lithium, great batteries. I don't know, it's hard to say like battery to battery. Oh, like this battery is better than the other. I really would suggest if you want to learn more about batteries, go and listen to the Paddle and Fin episode that I did with the guys from um, the the last cast. It was Matt and I think it was just Matt on that one, but it's me and Michael, the owner of Z Pro Lithium. He learned he's got his doctorate in lithium technology and learned from the guy who invented it, who has like a Nobel Prize or something in it. So he actually just passed away. Dude was like 100. But yeah, so like somebody super knowledgeable about the industry and just a great episode. Even if you want to buy an Amazon battery, you can do that. But that's a great episode to kind of learn some information about batteries and getting it straight from source as somebody who knows all the everywhere they're made, everywhere the cell's made, from all the technology and how it's put together, and why you price points and everything else, and the technology, obviously. Yeah, so great episode. I just can't suggest that one enough. Not because it was Zepro. It's just, man, a lot of great knowledge in that. But I feel at the end of the day, whenever I'm motoring back to the ramp, I feel good because I got that Z Pro. I know it's going to get me home, and it's got the Bluetooth technology, so you can see if if you're not using Torpedo and you're using a Newport or some other motor, you can see exactly how much battery life you have left, and that's awesome. Yeah, yet to have an issue. So just super dependable, and I love that. I know their customer service is second to none. So as good as anybody else out there. I won't say better because there's a lot of great customer service out in our industry, thankfully. But this week I want, like I said, I want to talk about the Wacky rig. There's not a whole lot to talk about it, but first I want to explain why. And I posted this on my YouTube channel Daniel Perry Fishing. It's, you don't have to subscribe to that. It's not awesome. Um, but I have a few things where, I'm not afraid to share information. I hope everybody learns and is able to catch more, more bigger, better fish and win more tournaments. Hopefully not against me, but if one of my buddies or somebody I know catches more fish because they throw something that I told them about, man, I can't imagine anything better than that. So the Wacky rig, why would you throw it? I literally have to say probably a third of my fish come from a Wacky rig. That's the straight up honest truth. And if you're one of those people, you won't throw a BFS or you won't throw spinning gear, you can turn off now because you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy if you won't throw a Wacky rig. Unless you were just fishing like the Great Lakes, I'm sure there's a place where you could do it then. The only time I won't bring, the only time I won't have a Wacky rig in the kayak is whenever I'm fishing big open water like Pickwick or somewhere on Tennessee River where I know I'm just going to be fishing offshore. In that situation, it does not play. Again, I'm sure there's a time when you could catch a fish doing it. You could weigh it down, and I'll talk about that too. But yeah, that. There's just going to be better baits to do it that you can be more efficient and things like that. So open water is the only time I won't throw it. Anything target oriented, even I mean, you can power shot a Wacky rig. Absolutely, you can. So and I'm not really going to talk about that technique. I kind of see power shotting as something different because you can use different baits for that. But it's also one of the most simple, and it was the first bait I ever taught my kid because it catches the most fish. That and like a Ned rig, they're just whenever you need a fish or whenever you're fishing a spot and there's more fish there, whether you've got live scope or not, you're fishing a spot that has more fish and you can't get them to bite and you're about to leave and you just cannot get them to bite. Throw that Wacky rig in there, whether it's the first thing you throw in there or the last. Hit them with a Wacky rig at least one time because you'll just be so surprised, especially if so I'm really going to try to talk like nuts and bolts of every single thing about it because again, it's not a very big topic. So it's going to be easy to do it in a very short episode here. Another great thing about a Wacky rig is it's also one of the most simple techniques. There's not much to it. It's a 5-inch worm. You can throw a 4 if you're smallmouth, and you can also use it on a drop shot. A 4-inch is great for that. But you can even cut down a 5-inch. So if you just wanted to carry a 5-inch, you could. It'd absolutely be possible. So, but a 5-inch Cinco, green pumpkin, I mean, 101 Bass Secrets with Roland Martin. I mean, dude, how much money did he win on a Wacky Rig Cinco or just a green pumpkin Cinco from Yamamoto? Um, I will say, first, I guess we'll talk about baits since that's where I started. X Zone, to me, Yamamoto is going to be the best. They just are. They have a little bit better salt content, so they sink a little bit quicker. Um, Obviously, the negative with any Yamamoto bait is that they're not, they don't last as long, and that sucks. So, and you can't really use a Z-Man. I'm not throwing shade on them because I do, there are a couple of Z-Man plastics I keep in the kayak all the time, and they make great baits. But you don't want a worm that floats. In this situation, you want a worm that's going to sink, sometimes quicker. And the technique is it's just wobbling a little. You can go watch some YouTube videos if you're sitting here watching this on YouTube. For me, if you look at a YouTube video, it just kind of wobbles as it goes down. Whether it's a dead crawfish without pinchers or a crawfish with, I guess it doesn't have to be dead, but just crawfish without pinchers. You can mimic a bait fish with different colors. Now, a lot of time that's what I'm doing. I don't know if it's specifically a fish, a certain profile that it fits, or it just looks like something natural. That's kind of the way I'm not a fish, so obviously I don't try to put myself in the mind of a fish. I just know what works. And to me, it's just one of those, it's one of those profiles that's going to get bit all the time. It's super subtle, obviously. It's just a stick bait. And especially if you ever go down in Florida, man, if you don't have a Cinco tied on, you're crazy. But a 5 inch, here's the only time I will throw a 4 inch if I'm going a wacky rig on Ned on a drop shot. I seldom do that because I'll usually throw other baits rather than that, but that can be good too, especially if you want to fish something vertical. Wacky rig's definitely more target oriented, and if you want to fish things vertically, like a bluff wall or a lay down or whatever it is, you just want to fish something that's some kind of structure, a bridge pylon, docks. It's another thing. Go wacky rig will skip like nothing else. Um, if you really want to get underneath something, wacky rig is absolutely a great way to do it. And don't be afraid, throw it in there. If you lose a fish, it is what it is. It doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, as long as you retie your leader, you're good. But, buy some good line. Don't be worried about where you're going to throw it. 95% of the time, you're going to get them out. Every now and then you won't, and that is what it is. But there's not a lot of baits you can either get under there, get into. Like sometimes you'll see a boat dock and they have like doors where the boats go in, and you've only got like 6 inches, and it's hard to get many things in there. Wacky rig. Skip it right under there, put in the deepest, darkest places, set the hook, try to get them out quick. If you buy a good hook and you have good line, you probably won't have a problem most of the time. But again, you every now and then, if you're going to miss one, you know, 5 out of 100, it is what it is. It's still an unbelievable hookup ratio. It's another good thing about this bait. It has an extremely high hookup ratio. Out of all the baits I throw, this is absolutely, I don't facts and figures. I'm not sitting there writing like Marty Hughes, writing down every fish I catch. God bless that guy who's trying to catch 2023 in a year. He does that every year, and that's awesome. But I don't journal my fish. I don't, so I can't tell you exact numbers, but I can tell you that the hookup ratio on a wacky rig is top tier of any bait that I throw. Frog, obviously, probably being the lowest, and wacky rig being probably the highest. The hook, I'll talk about that a little bit more. The hook I use, the only hook I use for just a unweighted hook is the VMC. It's really the VMC Nico hook, the weedless Nico hook. And this one's the new Redline version. It's good. Eh, I can't say whether maybe the slick coated. I know it's a different hook. It feels the same as the other one. The other strength, they are more expensive. Are they better? The Redline hooks. I don't know. I really can't tell a difference between these and the old ones. So maybe a little bit thinner and it has the same strength. So that's good. The weed guard, I always throw it with a weed guard because I really don't think it impedes. They're just two pieces of big mono, like, I don't know, 25, 30 pound mono, something like that. So they really don't, they're so thin that they don't impede a hookup. So I leave them on there all the time. I also throw this hook for Nico rigs because it's made for that. And I throw the size 1, so I only carry one hook for Nico and wacky rigging. That's it, just one. The VMC weedless Nico hook size 1, not 1/0, size 1. You can go up to a 1/0 if you want to, especially if you're fishing around a little bit heavier cover. But like I said, I'm not afraid to throw this anywhere because I leave my drag halfway loose. I would say like medium. It's hard to give an exact strength to it, but somewhere medium. Where it's like it's not easy to pull out and it's not hard to pull out. Somewhere in the middle. Um, yeah, because you want to give the fish. Whenever you're fishing this technique, I don't think I've ever even bent out a hook, so it's not like I'm really worried about that. But it's 8 pound. I'm usually going to throw 8 pound line, so I'm not just going to hoss the fish in. Eight. Speaking of lines, the two lines I do throw would be eight. And if I know I'm just going to be throwing around a lot of docks, or I'm going to Gunnersville, I'm fishing a little bit heavier cover, maybe bigger fish, I would go up to a 10. So I carry three size leaders in the kayak and my Yak Yak Gadget crate. There's a bag on it. I keep three sizes, 6, 8, and 10, just for different situations, a different leader. I use a 12-pound Sunline SX1 braid. I think right now on one, I've went to that Asagai, something like that, the 12-pound, and that's been good too. Probably a little bit better than SX1, and that's whenever I have to respool my other two. I have three spinning setups. My other two spin setups, whenever that Sunline SX1 gets old, I need to replace it. It'll probably be with that Asagai or have you. If you look it up on Tackle Warehouse, wherever, ASEGAI, something like that, it's got those layers in it. I think you'll be able to figure it out from there. I use 12-pound braid to an 8 or 10-pound leader whenever I'm wacky rigging. And that's for a lot of my spinning setups. I use same braid for everything. And I just use different size leaders and the different rods. The rod my specific wacky rig rod, sometimes I will use something else if I've got, because whenever you're in a kayak, you've got different baits on different rods, and only, a wacky rig, you could throw it on a medium heavy if you had to, not a medium light. So, if you only have one spinning rod, that's fine. You can throw it on medium heavy. 7 foot to 7.2, I would say, would be where you want to be. 7 foot for me, 7 foot medium. I have the specific rod I use, although it seems like I kind of been switching a lot of my stuff over to Cashin lately. I've been a big fan of them. But I have a Falcon Expert 7 foot medium, also a great rod. I would say the guides on the Falcons are a little bit more flexible. It's not like they bend out real bad, but they're a little less durable than what the Cashins are. Seems like the Cashin are kind of glued in there a little bit, epoxied a little bit better so the eyes move less. And so I'm hard on my gear. Everybody is in a kayak. So for me, the having that a little bit stiffer line guides, I probably prefer that a little bit more. Although the 7 foot medium Falcon Expert is just, it's real nice. The action's perfect because you do want a lot of, you know, I don't want to say you want it to not be fast, maybe a hair more parabolic if possible, because it's great for skipping. If you're skipping all the time, like I do, getting under laydowns, getting under docks, things like that, I'm putting my wacky rig everywhere, anywhere and everywhere I can. I'm going to put it, and having a little bit shorter rod so you can get underneath overhangs, and just trying to get it to different places. It's I would lean on the lower side of 7 foot 2 to 7, probably 7 foots. That's obviously my preferred because that's what I have. So you got the rod, the reel, the line. Well, the reel, I use a 3,000 size Daiwa Tatula. I think I have the new LT on that one. The old LT is good as well. I don't like the reverse anti-reverse because that can fail. It did fail on one of mine. Um, so that sucks. And then the new LT, the new Tatula, they took it off. So good job, Daiwa. Um, Daiwa or Shimano, obviously great. But whatever you have, you can make that work. So, rod, reel, line. I talked about the worm, 5 inch. The only time I'll go up or down is a 4 inch. Like I said, if I'm shot in a wacky rig, or let's say I'm going to Florida or Texas, somewhere with big fish, or I want a little bit faster sink rate without changing my hook, I will use a 6 inch Senko. But let's say 90 to 95% of the time, I'm throwing a 5 inch every day in, day out. 5 inch, it'll get you there. 6 inch, if you have it, sometimes it's the right bait. Colors, really just throwing brim profiles, it seems like. So green pumpkin blue, green pumpkin purples, anything like that. X Zone, they specifically have a color whenever the water is a little bit clearer. It's called 309. I'm sure I've talked about it before. It's just the deal. It is a deal. Big Bite has one similar. It's called like green pumpkin purple copper, and it's got pearlescent bottom. So Big Bites has a very similar color. So 309 and that. I would big thumbs up to those. The True Center stick for X Zone has a little hook slot underneath there, and that's why they call it the True Center stick. It helps you line it up properly if you're Texas rigging it. But in this situation, it doesn't really help. Um, so I think another big thing that people don't do, I kind of, it's not juice because it's just a tool. So it's not that big of a thing, I guess. But I don't, I definitely don't think the word's gotten out on it. And I think some people kind of keep it a little bit hush hush. But the um, crossfire, crossover 99% sure it's called the crossover pliers. VMC crossover, it's just pliers for, it's like the new O-ring tool. And you can use it. It comes with little rings. If you're watching this, you can see it. And on top of the ring, it's got an eye right there. And it's got a eye both horizontal and vertical. So you can use it for both a Nico rig and a Wacky rig. And it works for both. So the good thing about this, and this goes in line with my hook, you will get, I truly feel like you will get more, you get better action with a smaller hook. Also, the lighter gauge hook you can use, you're going to increase your hookup ratio, because it's closer to a needle. You know, it's just smaller gauge wire, goes in their mouth better. Whenever you use a lighter hook, like size 1, you can use a size 1 because you're using the O-ring rather than the hook going through the body of the worm. Whenever you do that, I'm showing it, but you don't have to see it. You're losing a good bit of your hook gap to the worm being inside the bait. So whenever you thread the hook through the worm, the space that the worm is taking up on the hook decreases your hookup ratio. Obviously, there's less hook gap there. So whenever you use the crossover ring, I'll show it. You just take the hook, you put it right into the crossover ring. It's got a little hook slot. Well, here first, let me put the worm on the ring. And you don't have to see this, it's fine. You can look up YouTube crossover pliers. So you take the pliers, whenever you push them together, it opens the ring. You put the worm inside the ring, obviously. And this is kind of like an O-ring. And I know you're sitting there thinking, oh, I've been using O-ring tool, wacky tool forever. This is better. It just is. It's a better mousetrap. I'm sorry if you don't want to invest the money into some of these pliers. I don't need any more. Just take the O-ring Wacky rig tool out of the kayak and put these in. It's an improvement. So because you're using this ring, it allows you get a better hook gap, and you can use a smaller wire hook because the hook is now not going through the bait, but rather it's going through the eye on the crossover ring. So if you're thinking about whenever you use a regular old Wacky rig tool and you have the O-ring on there, your hook, there's another benefit. Your hook would go parallel. I think that's right. Yeah, parallel. Your hook would be in line with the bait because of the O-ring. The hook would go into the worm a little bit under the ring and go parallel with the worm. Now, whenever you use this, it can go perpendicular. So the hook is going opposite the way of the worm. And because it does that, you also get a better fall. Hopefully it is making sense if you're not watching it. It's better. It just is. I'm sorry, like I get sometimes you don't want to learn that new knot. You don't want to use that new line. You love the bait you've been using forever. You love the tool, the kayak, the whatever. You don't want to make a change. Make this change. It's I'm not on VMC's team. Make the change. It will increase your ratio. You can go one size down on your hook, and you're going to get a better hookup ratio. You just are. You're going to get a better fall on the bait because not because of the weight of the hook, so it might would be a little bit slower, but you're going to get a more natural fall of the bait. It's not going to be pulled down by the hook as much. I guess I get that it's a minute difference, not minute bull, like the basketball player. But it's a very very small difference. But I just really think it gives it more of the action, natural action it's supposed to have. So even if you're using not a Yamamoto and you're using like an X-Zone, which I really do think X-Zone is the best under Yamamoto. Young Dinger, there's a bunch of great ones, and you can use them all. But X-Zone is as good as anybody else. I promise. I've used them. Um, so yeah, there you go. That O-ring, the crossover ring is just better. I mean, I'm glad nobody else on the show because we'd be arguing about it. It is. So you can like it or not. I don't care. It's better. It stays on there. It stays on there for a long time. You're pretty much going to ruin. Uh, you're just not going to throw the ring off the hook. It doesn't happen. I mean, it is difficult to get it off there. So I just ruined a hook and I mean a ring and a bait for y'all. So there you go. One for the team. Um, Besides that, so we talked about the rod, the reel, the bait, the line. All those are pretty simple. Not a lot to it. Get the crossover rings. I promise. Um, and whenever you win a bunch of money on it, you can send me a little cut. But the six, I've tried using the 4 and the 8 size rings. It comes with a set of 6. Buy you a couple of more packs whenever you do it, because sometimes they can be tough to get. They sell a clear, a black, a green pumpkin, and the pliers. They have two little storage compartments, one on each side of the handle. And they're very small. It's not going to take up much room in your kayak. Um, and inside those, they have a little storage compartment so you can keep the rings. So every now and then I fill up my rings. I could just go with green pumpkin. You know, maybe clear and black. You can carry those too, but green pumpkin, it would go with anything. It's such a small difference. I don't think it matters. So the only other time, and the very seldom times that I do this, so almost all the time, I'm using just a weightless wacky rig. The only other times I don't would be whenever I want to get the bait down faster. That could either be in practice or it could be whenever I'm fishing bluff walls and I think you know, they're suspending a little bit deeper on a bluff wall and just throwing a regular weightless wacky rig and going to do it. These packs are pretty small, so it's not a lot to keep in the kayak, so it hasn't been an issue storage wise. But I keep 3 packs. They're the Owner Ultra Head Wacky, and they're 1/0. I would 1/0, one, both be good. I carry the 1/32, 1/16, 1/8. Like I said, these are I'm not using them very often. Maybe you live in a place where you want to fish like offshore humps. I could see these being a little bit more effective than a regular weightless wacky. I would probably go to an eco rig in that situation. That's just me. I would prefer that bait in that situation. But bluff walls, things like that, whenever you're trying to get down a little bit quicker, or like I said in practice, these can be the deal and they can save you a whole bunch of time. So the worms, green pumpkin, if I didn't say the colors that I usually throw, besides the 309, that green pumpkin pearlescent with the purple and gold just looks like a brim, especially in the summer. It kills. Green pumpkins, black, blue, your regular colors, whatever you like. In the fall and in the spring, you can go to more shad if you like to do that. I don't do that too much. In the fall, I will sometimes go to more of a shad profile, shag color, but you know, it's a wacky rig. It looks natural. I really don't think color is the big deciding factor in a wacky rig. If you put a wacky rig in a fish's face, it's going to eat it. It's one of those, it can't not eat it. It just gets bit. So if you've got a kid and you want to teach them a brand new technique like I did my 6-year-old, you want to get them into fishing, you want them to catch a bunch of fish, a wacky rig is a great way to do it. Or if you're just one of those people, man, you hate to throw a spinning reel. I don't fairy wand. I'm a man. I don't need that. Get out of here with that. Throw a wacky rig or get beat by one, or just spin and reel in general. Maybe we should do a whole nother show on that. Use a spinning reel. If you don't have one, buy one. Use it. At least have one in your kayak at all times. You're crazy if you don't. Um, you just are. I'm sorry. But a wacky rig, you know, I got a few trophies behind me here, and I don't know how much of that money's come on that. So, you know, I don't. There is no show that I could have that I could help anybody catch more fish than this one. I legitimately feel that way. So, um, I hope you heed this and you say if you're going to learn that new technique, maybe it's over the winter. Like I do, I try to learn at least one new technique every year to just add to the arsenal. 2 years ago it was a Nico and caught the heck out of them on that. A couple years before that, it was a wacky rig. So 5 years ago I wasn't throwing one, and now probably a third of my fish come on one. So it's just a prolific fish catcher. It just is, and man, if your buddy sucks at fishing, send him this episode. Say, man, if you're trying to get into kayak fishing, you're trying to get into any fishing, whether you're a kayak fisherman or not. Um, Wacky rig. I don't know what else to say about that. I hope y'all, if you have any questions, message me. I'm happy to answer them because this is one of those techniques. It will catch big fish. It will catch every fish. It will catch other types of fish. It will catch a little bit of everything, but if you think it can't win a tournament, I promise you're wrong. In any situation, whether it's, I guess I didn't say depth or how I throw it. I will say those two. So depth, it's really the weight list. We're talking 6 feet or less almost all the time. You could go to a 6 inch and maybe get down to 10. But then there's just the time it takes. You're probably going to do better with a different bait, because I'm usually using that 6 inch for bigger fish, not to get down faster. Um, yeah, so that would be it. And how do you fish it? Just throw it out there and just let it hit the bottom. And then whenever you just count it down, you know, go in some clear water, go in your pool, go wherever, throw it in the toilet, throw it in sometimes I will get in the tub after I'll put some water in the tub and I'll sit there and play with baits and see which ones I like more. What does this one do that one doesn't do? And a wacky rig, count down. You put 3 feet of water in there and it hits the bottom and it takes 3 seconds. Then whenever you're fishing and you're fishing 6 feet, you count it down 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You right at the bottom are very close. Give it just a little pop. Let it fall back down. Give it a little pop. Take out slack, and just pop it. Just give it a little bit of pops and let it fall back down. It's something that's just here's a great explanation. David Dudley said this one time about a wacky rig, and you can YouTube it. He said, uh, like, what is a wacky rig? It's whacked out. He says, I don't know what it does or why it works, but it just says, whenever you pop it, it just says, come eat me, because it's coming together. And that's it. And I watched that video and then I started throwing it. I was like, this dude's won Angler of the Year a few times. I need to be able to fill out my limit sometimes whenever I can't, or just it works anytime too, not just limit fish. But yeah, throw a wacky rig. Um, if you're going to throw the weighted wacky hooks, just throw those on bluff walls, things like that, any kind of structure. And you're really, because you're fishing on structure, you're really not doing anything to it. You're just letting it fall every now and then. As it falls, you can give it a tiny pop. But you have to be a line watcher with a wacky rig. That's probably the big one. And probably the only negative to showing it to a kid is you have to be a line watcher. As your bait is falling, the fish are going half the time. or most of the time, they're going to hit it on the way down, on the fall, on the initial fall, or very close to it. So you have to be a line watcher and keep some of the bow out of your line. You obviously don't want it to be a tight lined, because if it's tight, it's not falling naturally. But you give it a little bit of slack and you watch your line. And if you see it pop, or you see it bounce, you see it move one direction or the other, that's a big one. You'll just see your line start going the wrong direction, and you didn't know you didn't cast there. So you really have to focus on a wacky rig, because it's not going to be a chatterbait where it's chattering, it's making that you feel the vibration, then it just stops. The best chatterbait fishermen don't just wait for a bite. They set the hook whenever they feel the bait not chattering. And that's difference in between somebody who's great at throwing a chatterbait and somebody who's can catch some fish on a chatterbait. They're not feeling for the bite, they're feeling for the chattering to stop. Because sometimes they'll slackline you and you'll never know. And then by the time you feel them, they're about to spit the bait out, and they've already got it out of their crushers, and you don't get a good hook set. Same way with a wacky rig. You have to be on top of your game. You have to focus, watch your line. Let it bow a little bit, but don't let it have a whole lot of slack, because you want to see it move. You want to be able to see your line move. So, and sometimes people like to use like the high vis braid. So you're using the fluorescent braids, things like that. I don't do that. It just it just looks unnatural to me for some reason, and kind of like whenever I'm out on the water, I'm feeling a little more connected to creation and whatever else, and seeing a real unnatural color like that right in front of me, just kind of, just maybe it takes some enjoyment out of it for me. I don't know if that's weird or what, but I don't like the color. It's like it doesn't mix with my environment, so it hurts my focus. But yeah, so watch your line. That would be the biggest tip I can give with the wacky rig. But besides that, it'll catch fish. You're going to catch fish on this. If you don't throw a wacky rig, take my word for it. Throw it. This is one, like, I really want to help people with it, and that's why I want to do a show by myself, because I am such an evangelist for wacky rigging, and it can catch so many fish that it's one of those. I promise you, start catching fish on it, you'll be addicted to it, and you'll love it, and you'll fill out more limits. You'll get in the money more, or get closer to the money. You'll become a better angler. How many times have you, if you've been fishing tournaments for a long time, how many times have you came in with 4 fish instead of 5? Or, oh, if you would have had that fifth fish, you would have won. Or, upgrade. There's a pile of fish there, and you just can't get them to bite, no matter what you do. But they're suspended along a bluff wall, or somewhere, or under a dock. They're under there. You just can't get them to bite for anything. This is it. This is the one I will get them. So good luck. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. I really want to help people with this one, not to win tournaments against me, but to yeah, just everybody have a little bit more fun out there, and dang sure good way and fun way to catch them. So we'll see y'all next week. Appreciate y'all watching as always, and shoot me those suggestions for shows. I'm happy to take them. Don't ever feel like I'm not approachable. I hope I come across that way, that I really want to help everybody, and that this show is for y'all as well as me. I can be selfish sometimes and have the people on, or get the juice on some techniques I'm trying to learn or get better at, or whatever it is. And I really feel like it's helped me. So over the years, I've been doing a podcast. So if there's something that you want to learn, or somebody to have on, or technique, or whatever it is, let me know. Because I want y'all to grow with me as well. It's been great for me, and last couple of years I've really surpassed my goals of that I've had in fishing, and yeah, things just been good, and want to make sure that everybody else is getting the same thing out of it that I am. So let me know if you have any questions. Y'all be safe out there. Wear your PFDs as always, and yeah, tight lines, everybody. Later.